a podcast about amazing people from an incredible state. Join Mike Broomhead for Amazing Arizonans, presented by Resolution Copper. Copper is essential to Arizona's economy and to America's future. Learn more at resolutioncopper.com.
Amazing Arizonans, and buckle up. It's music, so we're going to be here for a little while. Joining me is someone that I've been following since the 90s when I moved here, Ray Herndon.
Wow, do I feel old? But thanks.
Listen, there was, correct me if I'm wrong, because I had J. David Sloan was here doing the podcast. In the mid-90s, I moved here in 1995. There were three major country bands that if you followed country music, that were Arizona bands. There were three of them. There was the Herndon Brothers, J. David Sloan and Western Bread, and then up north was a band called Muggion.
Right.
Now, there probably were more, but those were the bands that everybody knew, and if you were playing somewhere, when you were playing, that's where people went. You were the bands to go and watch. Am I right?
Yeah. I was only in one of those bands, so I could speak for that one, and a lot of people came, so that was a good thing. Yes,
but they still do. I mean, you're being humble, but you you cannot mention, and the name of your place is Handlebar J's.
Right.
How long have you had it?
This is our 50th year of owning Handlebar. So I own it now. My mom, God rest her soul, lost her 8 years ago. She ran the place for 40 plus years and worked there 9 years prior to that for the previous owners. So
it is one of those iconic places. Mr. Lucky's was one of them. J. David's place was an iconic place in Arizona, but yours still is. And I've been there a bunch, and every time I go, I run into people I know that just still love that place.
It's a great place. It's a lot of work. The bar and restaurant business is not for the faint of heart, I must say. But when my mom passed, I had the opportunity to go ahead and keep that ball rolling or let it go. And I chose to keep it going because it's such a legacy. And, sometimes I'm kicking myself now for doing that. But at the same time, it's a love-hate thing,
Yeah.
I love it. Love the place. The business is difficult.
Yeah.
Hopefully things are going to get a little better for all small business, but it's it's a busy place. It keeps us running every day.
But you first of all, the band is amazing. And I was there one night. J. David was on stage with you.
Jay's with us quite often.
And Glenn Campbell's daughter was there singing.
Really?
Yeah.
Debbie Campbell, for sure.
She was there one night.
Okay.
So it's one of those. This is a very poor analogy, but it's when you go to comedy clubs, and it's an iconic comedy club. You never know who's going to get up on stage and do a set.
True.
And when you go to a place like yours with the connections in the music industry, which I want to talk about all of it if we have time, you are connected in that industry. And when there's somebody in town, where do they end up?
Right. That's happened many times over the years. It's I think with the touring scaled down the last few years, we don't see as many of those people just because, we rekindled the McBride and the Ride thing a few years back. Actually, right when COVID hit, we started getting back into it, and then that put us off a year or so. But really, since 2019, McBride and the Ride came back. And we've been touring some, but it's expensive out to tour. So, some of the bands that were coming through, unless they're on a really big tour, and they usually don't have time to stop because they're working 6 days a week, But back in the day, yes, Vince Gill came in there many times. Toby Keith, God rest his soul, he came in there several times. Matter of fact, one night, Toby and Matthew McConaughey were in there on the same night.
Oh, my gosh.
It was a Fiesta Bowl, and they were here for the Fiesta Bowl. So all of a sudden I look over and they go, hey, this guy's, I think it's an actor. He's sitting at the bar. And it was Matt McConaughey. I was like, wow. And then a little while later, Toby walks in. And Toby and I knew each other from stuff I had done in Nashville. And so we'd actually hung out a little bit here and there. And so he loved Handlebar. Matter of fact, I heard he was doing an interview one time and somebody asked him, he was doing an interview for Toby Keith's.
Yeah.
And they said, what's your favorite bar here? And he said, Handlebar J. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, Toby got up and sang that night. Of course, the house went crazy. And
larger than life.
We did a bunch of stuff with Toby over the years, including they used to do a thing at Greyhawk for the Phoenix Children's Hospital. And it was the name of the golf tournament. They'd have all these celebrities, and Toby was always the headliner. The Herndon brothers were always the backup band. So we backed up everybody from Glenn Campbell to Kenny Rogers to Ray. Well, Ray Benson brought us sleep. No, we backed Ray Benson, as a matter of fact, and just a whole slew of artists. And at the end, Toby would bring his band up, and then he called me up on stage. It was, he was a great guy. But we had a lot of those kind of guys back in the '90s and stuff. So
I went and saw one year. I saw Sammy Hagar at in Lake Tahoe. He played an outdoor concert every year in the summer. And he would always bring out a guest, then you didn't know who it was going to be in the middle of the show. And the year I went, it was Toby Keith.
Oh, wow.
And there's just you're in the business, so you know this. There are just people that have a stage presence that you'd listen to him read the phone book. And he just had that. And they did 4 songs together. Not one Sammy Hagar, Van Halen, or Toby Keith song. It was somebody else's music. Yeah. And it was just so good. He was just one of those people that you just would follow anywhere.
He was just one of the guys. He was a great guy, football player. And just, of course, football players all want to be musicians, and musicians all want to be football players. Yeah. I've noticed that since high school. Did
you want to be a football player?
Yeah, I did. My parents wouldn't let me because...
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Chaparral.
Did you?
Okay. I did. Graduated in '78. Boy, have things changed. My fiance's son goes to Chaparral. When I go over there, I'm amazed at how different it is.
That football field's something else, isn't it?
It really is. And we're a sponsor of their football team pretty much every year. So the Handlebar J is.
When you look back, I'm always curious because I'm envious of anyone. I've been fortunate with this podcast. I talk to as many people in the music industry as I can because I love music so much. But I'm not a musician. Never played a musical instrument.
Football?
Yeah, I was.
Oh, there you go.
I was. My claim to fame is I was Pop Warner teammates with Deion Sanders.
Oh, wow.
Deion and I were teammates. He had a little better career than I did. He's won a couple of more Super Bowls than I have. But when I look at the music industry, are you happier about the music you've written, or is it who you've performed with? I mean, performing with Lyle Lovett, your band, McBride and the Ride, and the success you had in the years you had it. Was it that success, or is it being known in the industry as being such a great songwriter?
Oh gosh.
I mean, what are you more proud of?
That's a good question. I don't know what I'm more proud of. I enjoy doing it all. I grew up playing the guitar. That's what my main instrument is, although I do play the fiddle a bit. I fiddle around on it just enough to be dangerous, really. But guitar is really my love. So playing in bands has always been like my favorite thing. And it just so happens that, of course, Lyle, I became a part of the large band since the inception of that when we met Lyle. And that's continued on until, I haven't really toured with Lyle in a few years, only because we started McBride and the Ride up again. So it takes me out. So I had to put the Lyle thing on hold for a little bit, but we still talk and everything. But McBride and the Ride being a band and a vocal band, and I'm a vocalist too. When that started, it was a band, and that's what I'm into. I love bands. So, I love the songwriting process too. I've met some of my most best friends writing songs in Nashville. And one of those guys, Jimbo Henson, has passed away, unfortunately. And Jimbo was he and I were just kindred spirits. He was just the best, and I miss him every day. And a friend of his and mine, Kim Tribble, another great songwriter in Nashville, and we were buddies. And the three of us wrote a song called "Gotta Get Your Heart Right" that was immediately recorded by Lee Greenwood, of all people.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like about 96 or so. And I came up with that idea one day, and Jimbo and Kim came over to write, and I said, I've got this idea. I don't know. You got to get your heart right. It just sounded good, And man, we wrote it in an hour or two, and immediately 2 days later, I get a call. Hey, Lee Greenwood's cutting your song. Wow. I didn't even have a publishing deal at the time. Yeah. No, I did have I take that back. I had just gotten a publishing deal. So they were excited. So it's things like that make me excited about songwriting. Of course, I love to write songs when it's appropriate. These days, I haven't been writing a lot because, quite honestly, I've been busy. But also, it's just, I got to have a reason to write something, I feel like.
Do they come to you?
Yeah. I have a whole list of ideas on my phone that have yet to be written. So hopefully soon enough I'll get to that.
Do you, there's got to be, I think most of the people I've talked with, did you ever have a song that you didn't think was going to do anything that took off, or vice versa? You wrote something and said, this is going to be a hit, and it just didn't do anything.
Yes, I have several of those right now.
Really?
I do. Matter of fact, it's funny. I don't know about what a hit is anymore. Patricia probably knows this, being in radio as long as she's been, and yourself being a country music fan. But it's hard these days to know what a hit is anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that what's his name? The new guy that's out, Zach Top.
Yeah.
He's kind of brought back that 90s thing. And that's kind of back in our wheelhouse, us guys.
80s.
I'm older than you, but
A little bit, but not much.
but that real story, real lyrical, melodic stuff, the last 10, 15 years have been pretty difficult for me and a lot of people to listen to on the radio. So my point being that
I'm glad you said that.
it's been hard for me to write. I don't want to write necessarily that kind of stuff, although I've written some trite bullshit too. but I got to have a reason to write something. I wrote some songs with Josh Scott, this guy that I had produced, and you met Josh. And, he was really gung-ho, one of these guys that he came along, and Josh is like 6'8", and he came
he's
in.
a big guy.
Yeah, and he came in Handlebar one night, and he's like, Mr. Herndon. And I'm looking up at him thinking, who is this
You're a tall guy. If you're looking up at him, imagine me when I walk in there.
And he says, I'm a big fan. I'm a fan of McBride and the Ride and yours, and I'm a songwriter, and I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. So I said, okay, you know what? We're playing tonight. Come up and sing a little bit. So he got up and sang with us a few songs, and I thought, he had that stage presence.
Yeah.
Like a Toby Keith. Big guy,
Yeah.
big voice, and just presence about him, And so I thought, he's got a commercial sounding good voice, And so I thought, okay. So I said, come over, I'll, play me your songs. So he didn't have any music to them. He just had these lyrics. And I was listening to him. He went through a few of them, and I said, play that one again, Okay. And so I got a guitar out, and I kind of strummed some chords to it and basically co-wrote the music to these lyrics. And he wanted to go record them. So long story short, we went in the studio and recorded with my band. And the stuff was coming out actually better than I expected, to be honest with you. And I did that with, I think we did 5 or 6 songs. I co-wrote all the music to them, and then I produced this little EP for him. So I contacted, we're talking about contacts in this business, and one of my good buddies, Chuck Ainlay, who is an incredible engineer in Nashville, and he's done the last 20 George Strait records with Tony Brown. He's produced the last couple of the George records itself, but he also did Lyle Lovett's last record. Anyway, Chuck's just a first-class engineer. He did McBride and the Ride's first record, so we go way back. So I called Chuck and I said, Chuck, we recorded these songs here. Would you consider mixing them? I know it's a local project. And he said, sure, man, so I sent them to him, and he mixed the hell out of them, and they just sounded great. And so, long story, I know, but the point is that Josh kind of had a career from that. So I really get excited about that, the process of writing a song, or in this case, co-writing a song, going in the studio, playing on it, and me being the producer, it was fun. And so I even sang on the stuff too. I had some local guys, Tony Martinez, who's done pretty well. He's in Nashville doing some stuff now, from local guy. But utilized our local talent here. And Josh had him a little career there. I'm not sure where Josh is right now, but I know he's taken that ball and run with it. But that's fun to see. That's fun to see start to finish.
Is it? I don't know. I don't care what the career is. If you don't do it because you love it,
hang it up.
Yeah.
Right.
So, if everybody, when you're a kid, you want to be a professional athlete until you realize it's a lot of work. And do I really want to do that for a living? There are a lot of people, I'm sure, that have a good voice and they say, I'd love to be an artist.
Sure. A lot of them.
Until they realize it's going to take you 25 years to be an overnight success.
Oh my gosh.
And you're going to be playing all over the country, and you're driving all over the country. You're never home. Are you willing to do that? Do you ever have a day where you didn't love it?
It's all glamorous. No, not really.
I can't imagine.
The only day that I could say I didn't love it is if I got myself roped into something that I shouldn't have said yes to.
But as far as getting on stage in front of a crowd, do you still love it?
Oh, yeah, I do.
I remember this is,
Sure.
I don't know if anybody's interested in this, but when we did that event, when I was at that event where I was speaking that you were playing, when I got there and found out you guys were there, it instantly took me back in time.
Wow, that's
I
funny.
was so happy that you guys were there, and you didn't know me really. I mean, you may have known when we met, but we didn't know each other. But I felt like I had known you for 25 years.
That's funny.
Because I had been listening to you for 25 years here, and before that with McBride and the Riot. I mean, everybody knew who you were.
That's funny. Yeah, it's funny you say that. You used to come to Mr. Lucky's,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, and I started playing at Lucky's with Jay David and the Rogues in 1982 or 3. I think 82. We met Lyle Lovett when I was in that band. And, things graduated from there. But, well, thanks for saying that. I mean, it's hard to believe that I'm that old, number one.
But
Still,
the music connects people like that.
It does. Yeah, it certainly does. You were talking about that 1 in a million. Well, you know who's one of our regular customers? Speaking of that, Kurt Warner.
Oh, wow.
Kurt and Brenda come in a lot, and they are just great folks. And if you've never seen their movie, the movie that was made about him, American Underdog.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. It just really, to be honest with you, I didn't know his story until he started coming in there a year or two ago. And when I found out about the movie, of course, I watched it and I was like, wow. And, what an amazing story. But that's one of those 1 in a million stories. The guy did not give up.
Right.
He didn't give up. And he should have given up, right? He should have, and he didn't. And that is, every time I see him, I'm just like, I'm kind of starstruck by him. I think a lot of people are.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
And they have a great charity called Treasure House, by the way. And they just do a lot of great work for that charity and stuff. But they're great folks. But that's one of those stories that you just, I think of that as a musician. Of course, I grew up going, wow, I want to be a star. I want to be a star.
Right.
What is a star? I mean, really, as I've gotten older, I'm like, it's fleeting. I hate to say, but it is a fleeting business in a lot of ways. So I'm kind of happy that I've done what I've done because I've gotten to see those pieces of what that is. Being a part of McBride and the Ride, we got to do a lot of incredible things. I mean, we were on all the award shows, sat in Buck Owens' office with Buck at KUZZ in Bakersfield. I knew the Owens from here, from KNIX back in the days.
Sure.
And, I got to rub elbows with a lot of those people, and I got to be around them. I got to see what it's about. I got to be on those shows. I played some of the best venues in the world with McBride and the Ride and with Lyle. And so I've gotten to see what it is, but I didn't have to always be in the hot seat.
But you got to play with, and you get to play with.
Yes, and I still do.
Yeah.
So, sometimes, and I hate to say, but sometimes that star thing is, they burn it really fast and then they're never heard from again.
Yeah.
So unfortunately.
So the longevity.
Yeah, so I've been fortunate there. And I guess seeing Lyle's career do that, he has stayed at the forefront of his career all these years.
Yeah.
And it's neat to see that.
And there are some people that are so uniquely talented that their music carries them. Their older music is still popular with the younger generation, and their new music stays popular. They stay contemporary. And there's few people that can do a lot of that. I took, when my oldest was in high school, she wanted to go see the Goo Goo Dolls and Bon Jovi. And it was like a time warp. And when Bon Jovi was on stage, and I got to meet John Bon Jovi when they were just starting out. Mm-hmm. I used to work backstage at shows, and I got to meet him when they were opening up for the Scorpions, and watching him on stage, and they would do an old song or a new song, and these kids were going crazy for this new music. And then he would do a song from Slippery When Wet or something, and the moms were going crazy. And it was like watching this and how many people, and I would imagine for you to be able to still get on stage and have people love what you do. And I'm sure you get tired. I mean, and I would say you get tired, but I'm sure it becomes a routine to hear someone like me say, I remember when you were doing this, or when I saw you here or there. But you do realize that there's a big piece of that for people, especially country fans here.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
It's fun stuff.
I saw my cousin Paul Herndon, who I hadn't seen in a while. He lives on the west side, and I lived on the east side of town. So that continental divide there is big sometimes, and especially with your relatives you don't see. But we stay in contact with, through Facebook or whatever. Yep. But he and his wife were in the other night, and he was just like amazed. There was a huge crowd, and he said, man, we're going to start coming more often. And he worked for APS his whole career, and, he's retired now, and he's like, hell, we'll just get a hotel room over here. But he was talking about the days of Lucky's. He used to come to Lucky's too, and when he was a young man, and he just saying, man, it's just so neat to hear you guys you're still doing it, And I told somebody the other day we were talking about George Strait.
Yeah.
My friend's a huge George Strait fan. And I said, you realize that we probably played Amarillo by Morning and The Chair more than George has ever even thought of playing it in his career. All these years we've been playing those songs, cover songs. We do some of my original stuff too, but people want to dance to songs they know. That's the bottom line.
But when you there was that time when country became so popular. I grew up listening to country music. I was born in Northeast Ohio in farm country, so my grandparents listened to country music back then. I was born in '67, so in the early '70s, and I moved to Southwest Florida where I grew up, and that's all we listened to. I shouldn't say it's all we listened to. I listened to everything, but we were such country music fans of that era, and it was such a great time.
Yeah.
Because if you're listening to Merle Haggard, how can you go wrong?
Right.
But that next generation, where I grew up, and listening to the Mark Chestnuts and the Travis Tritts, and there was just this great time in country music. Then Garth Brooks took it to a whole different level for everybody that wanted to be a country artist, but it still seemed to be connected to the previous generation. It didn't feel that way for a while to me. That whether you call it bro country or whatever you call it, it didn't seem to be the connection. And maybe it's coming back now, but it might. Do you think I'm wrong? No,
I think you're absolutely right. I think it is going to come back because I think everybody's sick of that whole bro country thing, including myself and even the younger people. We have a lot of younger people that come to Handlebar, and we're talking about the generational thing. Handlebar's been there so long. Again, it's been Handlebar J since 1967. So I meet people all the time that we met each other here. We've got kids and we got grandkids, and I'm like, wow. And then they're still meeting each other. But now we're getting an influx of younger people, which is great. Yeah. Because if you don't, you die. Yep. So that's been something we've really tried to do. But these younger kids, they want to hear the older music. It's funny. They want to hear the Merle Haggard and Okie from Muskogee, which I do, which I've been doing a long time. I'm a huge Merle Haggard fan. And when you see, I think nostalgia, the bigger the valley gets. The people that have been here a long time, I've been here 30 years, not nearly as long as some, but people like nostalgia. And when tourists come here, they want a flavor of what it's really like. And Handlebars is a great location in Scottsdale, close to everything that's going on. So when it's spring training or it's the Open or it's Barrett Jackson, people want to go somewhere that feels like Arizona. They do. And you've been able to hang on to that. Well, we try our best, and that's true. It's like Lyle used to say on stage. He grew up in Spring, Texas. He said, I live in the country, or I grew up in the country, but I now live in the city, but I haven't moved. Yeah, and that's a great way of saying it. And that's how I feel with Handlebar, is because back in the day when I was a kid, Handlebar was the only thing there. There was desert for miles around every direction, and now it's just closed in. But we've been fortunate. That's did you ever imagine that you could throw a rock from Handlebars and hit a Starbucks and a Jack in the Box? Gosh, yeah, right. Well, and I was going to say that. So George Brett, who's a famous baseball player, he was in there the other night, and he was in there the weekend of the the Phoenix Open. George was there, and I went up and talked to him the other night and told him a buddy of mine, Bo McMillan, who's a famous chef around here. They're all buddies. And I said, man, I just let Bo know you're here again. And he comes in there quite often. And also the other night, Barrett Rensler, who owns all the cold beer and cheeseburgers and bourbon and bones, he was in there the other night with a group. The guy that owns Ecstasy. So I've got all these guys that are owners of all the different establishments coming in Handlebar, which is great. I don't know if they're coming to just see what we're doing, or they're just coming to, I think they're just coming to have a good time.
I was a kid growing up. I told you I grew up in Southwest Florida. When I was a kid, spring training there was the Grapefruit League. Mm-hmm. And I grew up with spring training in my hometown, and the team then was the Kansas City Royals.
Right.
And so they won the World Series and they moved to another place. But I met George Brett when I was a little kid.
Oh, wow.
So, you talk about things kind of going full circle. That's why I would love to, you wonder, they're never going to remember you, but you almost want to tell somebody like that, I met you and you were so nice to me when I was a little kid.
That's cool.
Thank you for doing that because, you get mobbed by people. Sure. But he was genuinely a nice guy. And the rumor is I was not a bat boy. But the rumor is even back then in the late 70s and early 80s, whenever it was, he tipped the bat boys $100 at the end of spring training. Wow. That was a lot of money back then to a kid. Cool. But it was more the memory that he was kind enough to do stuff like that.
Sure. Well, pay it forward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, we get a lot of sports figures in. Tom Chambers is one of our regulars. Yep. Of course, Tom's about town, and I've known Tom forever. And so, it's always cool to have, going back to what we were talking about before, all the different celebrities. Heck, when my mom was a server there, I look at Dick Van Dyke's 99 years old, but when he had Southwest Studios here, it was actually called Graham Studios, and it was out near Cave Creek. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm not.
But that's where they filmed the new Dick Van Dyke show after the old Dick Van Dyke show, obviously. And it turns out that Angela Powell was his daughter on that show, and Angela and I have known each other forever. We went to Mesa Community College. But anyway, my mom waited on Dick Van Dyke at Handlebar several times, and she was so excited when Dick Van Dyke would show up to Handlebar, So going back, even back then, these celebrities, we had a guy, Fred Graham, who owned Graham Studios. He's the one that started. He was John Wayne's stand-in for many years.
Wow.
And his hat's hanging in the Handlebar. And so that kind of history is, it's hard to find anywhere, So
when you look at the music industry, when you look at some of the people that have had great success and you look at the industry as a whole, do you still enjoy the industry part of it, or did you ever? Is it the music that you love? What's the business like?
I don't like the industry at all, to be honest with you. Obviously, it's a business, and you have to treat it like one, I suppose. But and I do. But I play music because I love playing music, and the business part of it, if I make some money at it, great. I've made more connections than money in the music business, probably.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate where I've made a living doing it, no doubt. But the connections I've made doing it's the most important thing for me.
Watching
really. And playing, of course.
Talking to people like you that have been around for a while, talking and hearing stories about people. I always wish, there's always people you wish you could have met. And one of them for me was Waylon Jennings. And I was at an event, I don't know, it had to be 10, 12 years ago, and Jessie Coulter was there. Uh-huh. That's the closest I ever got, was talking to her about those times. Do you think back on some of the people that you've gotten to know and think, I really have been connected to history? I mean, to a big piece of
100%. Jessie and I are very close. Matter of fact, Jessie gave me this. I don't know if you can see it, but...
Oh, yeah.
That's we did a show at Handlebar in 2002 and 3. I don't know if your viewers can see it. But anyway, it's the Arizona state and a Waylon insignia, a cross, and a thing that looks like a fence.
Yeah.
The name of our show was Crossing the Boundaries.
Okay.
And that's kind of what this represents. So she gave one of these to my mom. She had these made special. One for her, one for me, one for Shooter Jennings, and one for my mom. So there was only 4 of them.
Wow.
So I wear it proudly. But Jesse and I have been close for a long time.
Well, when you talk to her, tell her that I was one of the people that wanted to talk to her about him, and she was so kind, and she said, I was happy to answer all my questions.
Oh, cool.
Just thank her for me. She was very kind.
I was, blessed to get to be around Waylon a bit. First time he came to Handlebar, he and Jesse, and he got up and sang Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys with me, and I was shaking in my boots at about 18.
Wow.
And but anyway, fast forward years later, I met Waylon and Jesse in Nashville at their home with a girl that I was seeing at the time, was friends with them. And, they knew me. They knew my dad. My dad played drums here in a band at Riverside Ballroom. So Richie Albright, who was Waylon's drummer and producer, knew my dad. And so anyway, we had a connection there from a long, long time. And so years later, Waylon passed in 2002. We were doing the McBride and the Ride Amarillo Sky record. We were mastering that record when I heard about Waylon's death on the radio, as a matter of fact, in Nashville. Anyway, I came back, and just a few short months later, I would come back from time to time. At the time, I was living in Nashville. I'd come back here, and this few months later, I came back, and Jesse happened to show up at Handlebar. And I got up and played with the band, like I always do. I sit in with the band, and, and Jesse, I went over and sat and visited with her. Next thing you know, we got together, we wrote a couple songs. She asked me to play on her record, and we just became really, really close friends. And then we started the show that we did twice in Handlebar, 2002 and 3 or 3 and 4. The first show we had, Andy Griggs, Jeffrey Steele, J. David Sloan. I had Jerry Riopel. We had the headliners were Chris Christopherson, Shooter, Jesse, Don Was. Anyway, we had this whole slew of artists that came, and we called it Crossing Boundaries. It was a tribute to Waylon. The next year, we had Hank Jr. and Tony Joe White, and this whole lineup. Little Steven from Bruce Springsteen's band, and I co-hosted the deal. It was a 6-hour show. And it was at Handlebar. And, as you can imagine, Handlebar was bursting at the seams, but it was so incredibly fun. Hank Jr. was only going to play 20 minutes. And we started out with the band, and he did, All My Ratty Friends to start his part of the show. And then he sat there with an acoustic guitar and amazed this whole crowd by himself. And it was just a moment that... unforgettable moment. And
what was it like?
I've got it on video somewhere, but I'm not supposed to, because they were videoing the show. They were like, "You can't do this," but they did anyway.
What was it like working with him?
Hank?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't really see him much that day. He was on the bus, and then he literally came in, and instead of playing 20 minutes, he played an hour and a half and sat there and just went from one song to the other and amazed all of us. And then he and Tony Joe White and then the band, they got up and they did a few songs together. But it was an incredible couple shows. We were going to continue that, little series, but we got sidetracked. But Jessie's doing great. She got remarried, and she's just happy as a lark, great. And I'm happy to see it for her.
That's great. When I was young, my mom still says that anytime she hears a song by Hank Williams Jr., it reminds her of me. Because I burned through his cassette tapes like crazy when I was a kid.
Oh, he's great.
And man. I went and saw him in concert, kind of aging myself a little bit. I saw him in concert in the local arena, and Aaron Tippin was opening for him. Oh, yeah. They toured together. And I saw the concert there. And then when John McCain ran for president, I was asked to be the master of ceremonies at the big rally in Prescott the night before the election. And Hank was a big supporter of McCain's.
Oh, wow.
So he played.
I'll be darned.
So I got to actually spend about 2 minutes talking to him. And I was so starstruck. I don't think I made a word of sense.
Oh, that's funny.
But it was just, I didn't even get a picture with him. But I just got to talk to him for a couple of minutes. And it's strange. I don't get starstruck by people, but there's something about music. You're here today. Jay David's been here with me. There's a friend of mine named Shem von Schreck, who is probably the most famous person most people don't know.
I know the name.
Well, Shem was with Toto.
Okay.
He music director for Kenny Loggins. Played with Don Felder in the Eagles now, traveled with them for such a long time. And he does a lot of work now composing, and he does a lot of music for movies and things.
Okay.
A brilliantly talented guy. young MC, Marvin, lives here in the Valley. He's did the podcast a few weeks ago.
I'll be darned.
And there's a theme with people that are talented artists, and you're one of them that
Thanks.
creating something, that's the part of it for me that I wish I could do, is taking something, a thought, and turning it into something. To me, that's an incredible talent.
Well, it's funny. Yesterday, I was supposed to be there today, but I opted to do your show instead.
Good.
And I'll be there tomorrow. But we're recording an album for a guy. He's a gentleman here that I don't really know him. I played on one song for him, and I guess he loved what I did, and he wanted to hire me to play on this new batch of songs. So yesterday we were in the studio, and on your point there, we take these songs that this he's not a professional songwriter. He's just a guy that wants to record his songs, and the songs are okay. Are they hits? I don't know. Probably not, but they're his songs.
Right.
They're his babies. He's close to them. And so our job, and it was myself, Gary Brazisi, who plays drums with us at Handlebar, and a very sought-after drummer. Gary played with Glenn Campbell for 20 years, and he and I went to high school together at Chaparral, for Pete's sake. But anyway, and then bass player Mario Mendeville, who's a incredible bass player here in town, and I've known Mario forever. But just the three of us, and we laid down the basics for this guy's song. We did 4 songs yesterday. I think it's a 12-song record. Today they're doing 3 more. Tomorrow I'll go in and do some more. But creating this guy's just kind of his version of them on acoustic, and then turning them into a song on, a recording that sounds like a record.
Yeah.
For him to go play you and go, hey, Mike, listen to and you
Right.
go, wow, that's really good. Because it actually sounds great because we're veteran guys.
Yeah.
We know how to do it. And so he's amazed. He tipped us. Here, let me tip you. He's just had so much fun. And that it wasn't even, it wasn't the tip, but it was just neat that I asked Gary, I goes, is this what we're getting paid? Because I'm happy with that if that's it. But it was just a nice gesture that he was showing his appreciation for us to be able to do that. And it was the same with Josh. When Josh heard me put the music down to those songs, he was amazed.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, it's what I do. I don't amaze myself. It's just part of what I do. I might be amazed at how good it actually turned out later, which I was with that stuff, but
the process is incredible.
The process is, and so going back to the beginning, that's what excites me. I think, especially as I get older, I know I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be like some new star or anything at this point. But what's great is getting to maybe find a new guy or a songwriter that's got songs that he needs to bring to life. And when we're able to do that, and it's successful, and they're happy and ecstatic about it, maybe they'll go out and get something done with those songs. Yeah. There's another guy, as a matter of fact, Thursday, we've done several albums for here in town, and he comes from L.A., and he's got another batch of songs, and he's a guy like Josh. He needs somebody to put music to them. Yeah. He just sings them. He doesn't play an instrument. So they always get me over to come up with musical ideas and an arrangement, and then we go and record them. Well, this kid, he's got like 1 million streams on some of these songs, They're not necessarily commercial hits, but he reaches his fan base, right? And so these are songs that I put together. So I hear that, I'm like, wow, okay. So it's reaching out there.
I complain, like a lot of people do, of what it used to be like to buy a record. I miss that.
Sure.
But there is something attractive to it. You can get your music out to people.
Anybody can.
And anybody can. And if it's something that people want to hear, they're going to find it.
Sure.
And I do like that aspect of it. I miss the buying a record. I miss
of course.
that whole, and what did you grow up? I should have asked you this at the beginning. I'm so scattered with this talking to you about stuff, but what did you listen to when you were a kid? Was it, who influenced you, but what did you listen to as a kid?
You know what? It's funny. Last night I watched 2 documentaries. I watched the Blood, Sweat, and Tears documentary.
Okay.
Have you seen this?
I haven't.
You've got to see this. Okay. Do yourself, check. You will appreciate this. If anybody.
Okay.
The music, are you familiar? I'm sure you're familiar with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Spinning Wheel and all these incredible songs. Lucretia McKeevill, I forgot about that one. But David Clayton Thomas was just an incredible singer. He was from Canada, which I didn't know. But anyway, I watched these documentaries, and I got so fascinated with that one especially. Then I started watching the Chicago documentary.
Haven't seen that
on
one yet
Chicago.
either.
And I'm going to tell you a really quick little snippet here that I didn't know. This is And I'm still amazed that all these years later, I never knew what 25 or 6 to 4 meant.
Yeah, I still don't know.
You know what that means?
No.
You're going to freak out when I tell you this.
I think I've heard this, but
You probably have. So when he was writing the song, he was above the Whiskey A Go-Go, sitting in someplace. He's sitting on the floor, sitting cross-legged on the floor. One of the lyrics, 25 or 6 to 4. It was 25 or 26 till 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, oh, for Pete's sake. That is so
we're all trying
stupid,
to guess what that means.
Simple. What is it? All these years, I'm like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't get it. But that's how simple something like that can be. But yet it's so...
You know what was a great one? The Nickelback documentary.
Oh, I've never seen that.
It's actually really good.
But you know, that Chicago was an influence on me early on.
Yeah.
That Chicago Transit Authority, when they were doing Only the Beginning and Make Me Smile and all those songs, I listened to that stuff like nonstop in high school. And Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Yeah.
I played Spinning Wheel for my 6th grade class with a band I was in. That was one of the songs we played.
You've been in a band since you were in 6th grade?
I've been playing professionally since I was 11, but I've been singing since I was 3 years old. But I started actually making money in this business, I shouldn't say. It was just playing casualties around town. But I was making money at 11 years old.
Good for you. That is so good.
I'm still making the same amount, too, now, all these 50 years later. No, I'm
They're
kidding,
paying you just as much.
I'm having as much fun, I can tell you that.
When you look at, let's talk about the business part of it. Because I have a friend, I'm sure you know him, that is still chasing the dream. Mm-hmm. And I'm so happy for him. I don't know if he's ever going to become the star, whatever that means, that he wants to be.
Yeah.
But he's still chasing the dream. He's been on the podcast. Do you know Hollywood?
Hollywood Yates?
Yeah.
Yep. Sure.
I love the fact that he's doing a Toby Keith tribute now.
And he's doing it great at that.
Yeah.
I think he's found his niche.
And I like the fact that he's excited about chasing the dream.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is to catch the dream. I don't know what that means for him. But anybody that's that excited about jumping in a bus and going to get on stage, and it doesn't matter if he's walking on top of the bar in this little tiny place with 40 people in it, or if he's on stage doing this that's getting a lot of success now. I love anybody that's excited about chasing the dream.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, Hollywood's great. We actually recorded some stuff for him years ago.
Oh, did you?
But and he had a taste of it on the American Gladiators thing, so he got hooked into
He did. He did.
And but yeah, good for him.
TV commercials, been in a couple of TV commercials.
Yeah, there's a
movies.
lot of guys. There's so many incredibly talented guys. Matter of fact, the other night, Mike, we had a guy, Luke Bulla.
Okay.
Look up Luke Bulla if you're a music fan, and if you're a bluegrass fan or a fan of independent artists. Luke played fiddle with Lyle in Lyle's band.
Okay.
We were out there on the road together for many years. Luke also played with Ricky Skaggs and Country Thunder, and I saw him one year. He was playing with Leanne Womack up at the Highland Church,
okay,
and which Lyle's going to be there March 10th, by the way, for the American Music Fest, and I think I'm going to go sit in with him. So
I would love to go to that show.
But anyway, but Luke played Handlebar the other night, so I'm bringing in for our 50th year this year. I'm trying to bring in some people from out of town, and they happen to be friends of mine too, But Luke is just a world-class fiddle player. He's from Washington State, grew up playing in fiddle contests and winning them, and he's an incredible singer and an incredible writer. He's just got all of that stuff. So now he's out doing solo shows, and like we're talking about, he's one of those guys, sure, he'd like to get there, whatever there is, but he's out there doing solo shows. And but anyway, he blew the whole crowd away the other night at Handlebar. He's just one of those guys you just can't help but just go, really?
Yeah.
This guy's got this much talent and he's not like a huge superstar? Yeah. That's not what it's always about. But, because I got a lot of friends that, you would think should be superstars. Another guy, Jeffrey Steele. Look Jeffrey Steele up if you don't know who he is, okay? He's another incredible, do you remember the band Boy Howdy?
Yeah.
Well, Jeffrey was the lead singer of Boy Howdy.
Okay, all right.
Jeffrey has gone on, and he and I are longtime friends, and we were in a band together in Nashville. But he has written more hit songs than
Who's the guy?
Just about anybody in Nashville, and I got him coming to Handlebar
I just
too.
draw a blank on the guy's name, but there's a song. It's kind of it's kind of a bluegrass feel to it, and he's a great guitar player. He's all over Instagram, and the song he does is called "Dust in a Baggie." It's about being addicted.
Oh wow!
And it's just such a great song.
Really?
And you see these people and you think they got to be new, and you find out they've been traveling around for years.
There are so many people. Oh.
I have a subscription to satellite radio just for 2 channels. I have the Prime Country channel, which is 80s and 90s country, and the Bluegrass channel.
Okay.
And I don't know much about bluegrass music, but everybody loves Ricky Skaggs,
Sure.
Alison Krauss and Union Station. And so I just love that kind of music. And it doesn't have the commercial popularity to be a whole station here dedicated to bluegrass music.
Right.
But I'll tune it in, and then on Sunday mornings when I'm driving to church, they play bluegrass gospel music.
Right.
It's such the talent in that music.
Bluegrass musicians are incredible. It's like Luke. He's a bluegrasser, but he also plays other styles too. But he grew up as a bluegrasser. Matter of fact, talking about Lyle, another guy that longtime acquaintances, friends, musical cohorts, whatever you want to say, but Stuart Duncan, one of the quintessential bluegrass fiddlers in the world, really. Yeah. He's out with Lyle right now. And I saw Stuart, and I've known Stuart forever too, but I saw Stu playing with Alison Krauss and Robert Plant. And Victor Krauss, who is Alison's brother, and I are close friends, and he played with Lyle. He played acoustic bass in Lyle's band for the last 20 years, so we were very close. But I went and saw that band at the Pepsi Amphitheater in Flagstaff a few months ago, and talk about a band that will blow your mind. If you're a Led Zeppelin, I was never a Led Zeppelin necessarily. I want to say I wasn't a huge fan because it was a little before my time.
Yeah,
but I always appreciated their music.
Right.
I just kind of missed it a little bit, but I'm still in awe of what they did. And Robert Plant.
And I look back at those. I love that music. When I was a kid, I was that one generation behind me.
Right.
I love Led Zeppelin. I love the Doors.
Yeah.
I love that music. But I'm a little younger than you. I was born in '67. But I love that genre of music. And when they collaborate.
Oh, the Alison Robert thing.
Oh my gosh.
Have you seen that?
I have. I've not been to a show, but yes, I've seen.
I don't know if they're going to do it again. They're going to take a little time off. If they do it, it might be in a couple years. But if they do bring it back, do yourself a favor. It's probably one of the best live shows. Just from you're amazed at not only Alison and Robert's vocal ability, but the musicianship, the songs, I mean, geez, these two veterans, and Robert Plant, especially, he's close to 80, I think. But just watching him on stage, it's just mesmerizing.
Have you seen the tribute? Have you seen online the tribute at the Kennedy Center where they did Stairway to Heaven, and it's what's her name? Is it Grace?
Ann Wilson?
Yeah, Ann Wilson. Yeah.
Was it
her? I think that they sang.
I don't know if she did. I saw her do rock and roll on one of those shows.
She from Heart? Is it the girl?
Yeah, Ann Wilson.
Yeah, they did Stairway to Heaven.
Okay. Oh
and
yeah, she kills.
She kills it. And his, I think it was his son played drums. They had an entire choir that sang at the end, had the entire band in tears.
Yeah.
Anytime you see that kind of collaboration, I'm going to jump back to what we were just talking about. I made a cardinal sin at a country show. My brother was going to school in Tennessee, in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, at a little school called Cumberland, which was not far from MTSU. And so while I was there watching him play football, I had a chance to go see Garth Brooks again. So I went to MTSU to watch Garth Brooks. I'd seen him in concert before, but in that time, 1993, that's when, Garth was in his prime.
Huge, yeah.
Alison Krauss and Union Station opened the show. And I said at the end of her set to somebody, she beat him. Because I'd seen him before.
Yeah.
She stole the show. Yeah. I mean, she was...
incredible.
Her voice... It doesn't matter what she's singing, whether it's the bluegrass stuff or she does Nothing at All by Keith Whitley. It doesn't matter. There's just something about her. And then when they play bluegrass music, even if you're not a fan of that genre of music, you cannot not be impressed with how great they are.
Right. Well, Alison and Victor both, they are huge Led Zeppelin fans and Def Leppard fans. And so Alison is a rock and roller at heart. even though she has this beautiful, pure bluegrass voice. I mean, her wheelhouse is going back to Zeppelin and all that stuff.
When you think back of the concerts you went to, because I can name for you 3 or 4 concerts that I will never forget those concerts as long as I live. What were they for you?
Got to see some. Oh, my God. I saw Van Halen here several times back in the 70s. It blew my mind.
Yep.
Heart, I loved Heart back when they were huge in the 70s. Saw them. Styx was another one I saw.
They're going to be here.
Are they?
A couple of weeks. They're going to be at Celebrity Theater.
I saw them with the original lineup.
I did too. I saw all of them. Paradise
Coliseum.
Theater. Yeah. Were they at the Coliseum?
Yep.
I got to work backstage at a bunch of the shows, but I saw them for Grand Illusion Tour, the Paradise Theater Tour. I even saw Mr. Roboto. I saw all of them. Styx was my very first record I ever bought with my own money.
Wow.
Was the album Pieces of 8 by Styx because it had the song Renegade on it.
Yeah.
That was the first record I ever bought with my own money.
I just saw Tommy Shaw doing Too Much Time on My Hands on the Daryl Hall show recently.
He's one of the people on my bucket list of people to meet.
Yeah.
I heard he's such a great guy.
Well, Danny Zalisco's a buddy of mine. And
is he?
Danny is he's got somebody here all the time.
Tell him to do my podcast. I've been trying to get him on the podcast.
He'd love to. I'm sure. Let's call him right now.
Put a good word in for me.
I will. Sure. Absolutely.
When you, the reason why I asked that for concerts for you, because I saw, I'm still a huge Mark Chestnut fan.
Yeah.
I saw Tracy Lawrence and Mark Chestnut in my hometown. And it was at the convention center. It wasn't a big venue, and it's a convention center, so it's kind of sterile, They tore that place down.
Yeah.
Mark Chestnut in the middle of the set, and bluegrass made me think of it. He said everybody in our band is from Texas or Louisiana, and he said this is what happens when you get a bunch of Cajun rednecks together.
Yeah.
And they broke out in this. Nothing he created as a hit. They started playing some bluegrass music. It was like a tent revival.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there were people dancing in the aisle. It was that when you are able to do that with a crowd, when you're on stage and you can watch people either singing the words to the McBride and the Ride songs, or you see people having the time of their life. Is there anything like it?
No, nothing like it. It's awesome. But sure, we feed off of the audience, their energy. But also at this point in my life playing music, we feed off of each other on the stage, and hopefully that translates.
Yeah.
And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, okay. If it's not translating, I might shift into something that translates better, hopefully, or maybe that didn't work either, but we still have a good time, no matter what it is, because we have to. Otherwise, you could be miserable.
I've watched when you go to shows and you watch people that have songs that are popular, and you've seen stars that stop, like watching Bryan Adams do one of his songs from the 80s, and he just plays the first chord and just watch the audience sing his song, and they paid to sing his songs back to him.
Right.
When you look back at that time with McBride and the Ride, when you had those hits, what was it like to watch people not hang on every word, sing every word?
Oh, yeah. And they were all, looking at them now, you remember they were 35 years younger.
Yeah.
We look out there and go, wow.
But now they have the money to pay for the show and the T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. No, but that was, when we quit, when we split up the first time in the 90s, we were at the height. I guess that's a good time to actually split up instead of going through splitting up when you're down here. But no, we were on the rise, and the record label politics, blah, 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 got into that thing a little bit too much, I think. And that's what happened. But anyway, we were riding high on that. Exactly. The band was kicking butt. It was a great band. We had it dialed in. The harmonies were strong. And hey, the crowd response was like you're describing. It's like rock concert stuff. Matter of fact, my friend Matt Rawlings, who's a great piano player and wonderful, long-time veteran player, played with everybody, produced everybody. But anyway, he came out with us to play in the 90s, and he couldn't believe he hadn't been out with us. He played on our records. He said, "Hey, man, could you come out? Our piano player can't do it. Come out for a couple gigs." So he did. And he just looked at me when we started, like Sacred Ground, and he couldn't believe it. He was like, wow.
Yeah.
I go, I know, man. We
That's
have to
so
deal with
good.
this every night.
So give me last question, because I could talk. I honestly could talk to you all day.
Thanks.
It's the first
thank you
extended
for having me.
conversation we've had, but I could literally talk to you all day about music until you got
That's cool.
sick of talking to me. But give me one moment. Give me one rock star, country star moment, whether it's on stage, backstage, off stage, one moment where it was, there's been the reason why I'm asking, I did 2 events for President Bush when he was in office.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, there were 30,000 people at Bank One Ballpark when it was called Bank One Ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before I was on radio or anything else. And I remember standing in an arena with 30,000 screaming people. They weren't screaming for me, but I was the MC of this event. And I think of that moment still with everything else I've done. And I thought, how do you explain to people that you were the master of ceremonies for a presidential visit?
Wow.
What's a moment for you where you think about it and think, no matter what happens, it's almost like an out-of-body experience?
Well, one of those I would say that comes to right at the forefront is with McBride and the Ride. We had put out a couple singles that stiffed right off the bat in the 90s when we came out, put the singles out, did a whole radio tour. So they were familiar with us. This single stiffed, next single stiff. We're like, oh. And we were out there in a van playing little places in Texas. And so we'd actually taken a month or so off. Okay. So we had the same manager as the Judds at the time, Ken Stilts. So we had a good connection there. So he put us on some dates with the Judds, and that was getting towards the end of their careers as the mom and daughter duo. But anyway, so we had been off for about a month and just going, well, what's going to happen? At that point, they'd released a song called Can I Count on You, which was a ballad. And it came out there about the same time Vince Gill's and Patty Lovelace's When I Call Your Name. So ballads were big then, right? And this is early 90s, like 91 or 2. They released Can I Count on You? Okay. We didn't hear much. And so we go to play this first gig. We hadn't played together in a month. We show up at this arena with Winona and Naomi, and we open the show for them. We do a few of the songs. Soon as I played the intro to Can I Count on You, the whole crowd went nuts. And we just went, they'd heard the song, and it had made its way to the radio and to their ears, and it was a hit at that point. And we were like, oh my gosh. So when we got off stage to go sign autographs or whatever, because that's a big part of country music.
Sure. Artists
going out and meet and greet. So we walk around the corner. When we walk around the corner, there's 300 people standing there at the merch table screaming. And we're like, is Winona come behind it?
You're
But they
looking
were
for the
screaming
Judds.
us. So it was a Beatles moment there, And so now we're lucky if, two people do that.
But
that was fun. No, it was really quite a moment. Yeah.
Well, listen, I've been a fan of the band before I met you, then following you around here in Arizona. I felt like I knew you back in the day when you'd play places we'd be at, rodeos we would be going to, after post-rodeo shows somewhere. Thanks for the time, man. It's so good to catch up with you, and I got to come into the bar and hang out.
Please do, Mike. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. I'll tell you, in the fall, we're going to have a big blowout. My plan is to block the street off and have
like a street
McBride
party.
and the Ride and a bunch of bands and maybe some other artists. But anyway, that's going to be sometime in October for our 50th anniversary. So
come on the radio show and promote it.
Love to.
All right.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure, Mike.
Listen,
Thanks.
we do these stories. It's called Amazing Arizonans for a reason. We've got over 30 episodes now in the can. These are just Arizona people with amazing stories. If you get a chance and you're in Scottsdale, at Scottsdale and Shea is where Handlebar J's is, you got to get in for a piece of Arizona history and listen to some of the best country music that there is. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Amazing Arizonans, presented by Resolution Copper. Tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.